We are
All right.
live. Welcome to Obscuria Filmcast. I'm your host, Abram Kaplan, and we are joined with Judy and Seth Michael May. And today we are discussing I Spit on Your Grave from 1978.
And
And,
and,
uh,
and the documentary
and the documentary Growing
Growing
Up
Up
with
with I
I
Spit on Your
Spit on Your
Grave,
Grave.
which
So the original film "I Spit on Your Grave" was released in 1978, and it was written and directed by Meir Zarchi and his son is I guess the producer of the documentary, which came out a few years ago,
yeah.
2019.
2019. So, Seth, this was your idea. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you
Okay,
chose
so
this?
I Spit on Your Grave was a movie that was at every local video store when I was growing up in the 80s, and people avoided it. It has a very scary poster. It had a very scary video box cover, which, by the way, supposedly it's Demi Moore's rear end.
Yeah.
On that box cover.
It's been confirmed.
And it was originally written as a script called Day of the Woman. And at this time, there were a lot of weird movies that made it to videotape in the 80s and made it to grindhouse movie theater distribution in the 70s, coming out of the 60s with Night of the Living Dead. But there were also things like there's a lot of death stuff. There were all these what were those profiles of death and dying movies that came out in the 80s that were basically just news footage, and they were pretty awful. But anyway, they would all stack up in this sort of thing, and these were these movies that looked so cheap that some people wondered if they were real. They're Texas Chainsaw Massacre has moments where you're like, this is so cheap that maybe they really did this. And these performances are so raw, and you don't know who any of these people are. There are no stars in this movie. So, if somebody disappears or gets killed, you might be like, oh, okay, I never heard of them again. Maybe they died making this movie. But anyway, so I Spit on Your Grave was originally created by them as Day of the Woman. And I don't think they had any intent of it being a horror film. I think they wanted it to be a revenge movie. And it was based off the fact that he was driving with his friend who helped make the movie.
And daughter.
Who's in the movie as well. And in the documentary. And a woman came out of the Jamaica Hills Park naked, and she had been raped. And he talked about, they took her to the police, and this was the 70s. And the police were saying, you have to speak up, ma'am. You have to tell us why you were in that park, ma'am. And he was kind of appalled. And when you watch the interviews, he comes off as a very, would I be wrong to saying that
he's a decent man?
He's very sensitive, kind of Israeli, soft-spoken Jewish guy.
Very family-oriented kind of guy. And I think he, it was almost like this was a very young woman, 18 years old, who was just raped. I think he saw her almost like a daughter figure. He was with his daughter, and he told his daughter, he dropped his daughter off at home while he went with the girl, I guess, to the hospital or to the police station. And it was just it had a dramatic effect on him.
Nightmare every woman has reporting to the police about violent rape or domestic abuse.
It hasn't gotten better. I'll be honest. I had something like that. Actually, that happened to a male friend of mine. And
really?
Yes. And the amount of humiliation and degradation that he had to go through after what it was worse than it was. He said it was almost worse what he had to go through with the doctors and the cops as the experience itself. So,
well, the daughter makes a point of saying it's better now.
It's probably better now in some respects.
And you could at least report to a female police officer who has been hired specifically for that job to take the case. So anyway, he had been writing stories all his life. He was writing for teen magazines. He grew up in Israel 13 years before the formation of the state. And he always had a typewriter, and he always had a magic lantern camera. And he cranked out this script, which was called Day of the Woman. And he put ads in Backstage and Showbiz, the trade papers, of which Backstage still exists online, and got 1,000 responses for roles in this movie. And the movie was shot in Connecticut, in a little town.
Takes place on the Lake Housatonic, which runs through parts of Western Connecticut and southwestern Massachusetts. It's right on the border of Dutchess County, like where New York State border is. And it runs into the Long Island Sound. It's a beautiful river, and that's where this film takes place.
Did they say Kent, Connecticut?
Yeah, Kent, Connecticut.
Kent, Connecticut.
It's a town that they kind of took over, and
because I think one of his friends owned the house that they filmed in.
Yeah, that they filmed in. He saw the house. And he was like, "We got to do it here."
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that, like there was a lot of casting out of town. Even when I started in 1989, there was still a lot of casting out of town for films. Casting in New York for films shot out of town. So, you would do that. And the woman that they cast, she was, this whole writing this story has a huge effect on this guy because he ends up marrying this woman.
Before the film was distributed, correct?
Before the film was distributed. It takes 2 years for this film to find a distributor. And
I believe his wife at the time helped him write the script. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But they talked about that in the documentary, where like he wrote over a period of 4 months, and his wife would sort of like proofread it and type it up for him because he would write on notes, similar to the female character of the movie.
I don't mean to jump ahead here, but I have a question, and I think it's appropriate because it's more based on the documentary than the actual film itself, which we're going to get deeper into.
Okay.
But the moment where they start to talk about how he ended up marrying Camille Keaton, I was a little confused because the narrator of the documentary and the filmmaker is the son, and he's talking about how happy he was because he really loved her. He loved Camille. And I'm wondering, like, okay, wait, did he get a divorce? Was he already divorced? What, the kids were happy?
Like he was having
the kids were happy about
affair.
Okay, but so they didn't mention, they didn't depict it as an affair, and they sort of they didn't even gloss over it. They completely didn't talk about it, his marriage to his wife at all. So I found that very strange, and I thought it was particularly peculiar that the son and daughter only had like lovely things to say about how happy they were that he was having this affair with and getting married to this other woman. I mean, I don't know. I thought that was strange. What do you guys think?
I think that, we don't know what the extra footage of the documentary looks like. But I know that there are always victims of a documentary about a movie. Like if you watch...
There's always victims in every documentary. And there's always a lot of bullshit.
There's always a lot of bullshit because you get all these storylines when you make a documentary.
Right.
It's not like making a movie where you write a through line and you stick to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And if an improv doesn't work, you don't put it in there. Or if a scene doesn't support the... Documentarians end up, they're going to do like a movie about a clown, and then the clown's brother gets accused of something. That's what happened with the Friedmans, that documentary. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you don't know what you're making. So, I mean, it reminds me of, I watched a documentary once on Star Wars, and Marcia Lucas directed, she edited Star Wars. And then she divorced George Lucas. And supposedly she says the only compliment he ever gave her was, "You're a pretty good editor, Marcia."
Well, I mean, who knows what happened with
we don't know
Meir Zarchi's marriage. Maybe she left him during the filming of the thing. It might not have been some kind of like, scandalous type of thing. They might have just separated, and then he fell in love with the woman in his film, and they got married.
They say he was later in the documentary that he was a bit of a Svengali director. Like he told her, look this way, move that way, which is strange
but
to me
it
when
works.
I say it, because in the original beginning part, she seems to make a lot of demands on how she wants to have her own room, and how she wants him to demonstrate how.
But he's the director, and he has his demands of how he wants the film to look. And when I was watching that part of the documentary and thinking back to the film, I mean, his direction was really good. I mean, he, you know, I don't know. I think it's time for. I think we've definitely hit the point where I can say I really think this film was actually a good film.
It's a good film. It starts a genre, but I can see why people got really
No. It's a completely messed up film, and I think a lot of weird people enjoyed this film for the wrong reasons. And we can get into that, but I just want to put that out there that, like, just for anybody who's made it this far, if you're not squeamish, I really think that this is an important film to see. It's worthwhile, and it's very disturbing. But it's a really well-made, low-budget film. In terms of actual artistry, the shots are, the design is amazing. The acting is quite good. The direction is great. I mean, I don't know. It's a really, and it's a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's powerful. There's never a dull moment in it. And it's an interesting film. I've never seen anything like it, and I don't think anything it's ever been made since.
It reminded me in a way of an influence on Kill Bill.
Yeah, and I'll say one other thing. I'm watching the film and I'm like, okay, this is clearly must have been inspired, at least to some degree, by Deliverance. There's so much. The one film that I think this film really parallels quite a bit is Deliverance, even though the rape scene in Deliverance is much shorter and the revenge narrative lasts a lot longer in that film. But it's kind of a similar.
This is worse than Deliverance in the way that I remember watching a Beatles interview, and I think Paul or George said, I always felt bad for Elvis because he had to go through it all by himself. We had the rest of the team to experience weed and girls and LSD and scam artists and lawyers, and Elvis had to do it all by himself. And that's the difference between, in Deliverance, you're like, well, at least they have each other.
Exactly. It's true.
The boys have each other. Here the boys are all after this girl.
It's kind of a weird, and it's almost a weird inversion in a sense, Yeah. It's like the lone, the lone vengeful, like, a victim going after this mob of evil men. It's pretty wild. I don't know. Judy, what do you think? What do you have to say about this movie?
Okay. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I will say it's a well-made film. It's a well-made, low-budget film. So I have to start off with that. The beginning is, I liked the scenery. I liked the way that they shot it. So from that aspect, I'll say it's well done. I thought the acting was like okay. Even Camille's part, she was okay. It's kind of one of those things where a woman being sexually assaulted, you don't know what the reaction is going to be. So it's kind of hard to play and to say if that's real or not, because everybody is so different. So if I start with the documentary, I actually didn't watch the whole documentary. And it's kind of ironic, Abram, because you talked about the moment where he talks about his dad marrying Camille, and he's like, oh yeah, and I love like introducing her to my friends. And something in that moment, I just like checked out. I was like, oh, whatever, I don't care anymore. So I'm wondering if there is a big piece missing, or there's something, I don't know if it's in denial, but I just was like, I found the whole beginning interesting. I loved hearing about the filmmaker's background and his childhood and about the story. I found that all really engaging. But as soon as it got to that moment, I don't know if it's just they had too many storylines going on. I sort of like checked out, and I was like, I don't really care anymore, which I haven't actually done. I've always watched all of our programs, but this one I was like, all right, I've seen enough. I've heard enough.
You're talking about the documentary.
Documentary. Yeah. I mean, it was well done. It was just, there was something about when it got to that moment, just part of me was like, I'm done. Like, I just was like, okay, I'm done. And I didn't know particularly why. So I'm just curious that you pointed that out. Like, I wonder if there's a big missing piece. I would be so curious to know that.
Yeah.
Now in terms of the film itself, I almost hesitate to say that it's a horror film. I almost found there's a little bit of comedy in it. Especially on the boat scene where he's on the and I will give them a lot of credit because they didn't, I don't know what the exact budget is, but it sounded like it was low budget, and I know the water was cold, and I've shot a low budget horror film, so I know how it is and like how difficult it is, and you need those comedic moments. But like when he's sitting on the boat and he's like, just, it's like, oh come on, you don't think she's going to turn it on? So there was just moments where I was like, okay, it's almost a little campy. I do wonder if this is a film that inspired the likes of, say, Eli Roth, because I do feel like it's a little bit early on and sort of like it's almost a little bit of a torture porn. The scene where he's sodomizing her on the rock, I just felt like I was like, this is a little bit like, I feel like people are gonna like enjoy this film, not for what Seth was mentioning, the right reasons. Yeah. So I didn't really particularly like that. I see what they were doing, but just as like a person, and maybe it's me as a woman and a mother, I just was like, all right, I've seen enough of the assault scenes. It kind of went on a little too
I kind of
long
couldn't
for
even
me.
really, I couldn't really watch it the whole time
It's
myself.
hard to watch.
I was like, I used part of that time because I knew it was going to be 30 minutes long, and like I kind of like used part of that time. Like I'd see what was going on. I used that as like a time to like do research on the film and stuff, and like I couldn't really glue myself to it. It is very hard to watch.
It was just that's why I place it almost more in a torture porn category, but way ahead of like 20 years ahead of its time before Cabin Fever, and the likes of those Saw type movies. But I love a lot of Asian horror cinema. They will show a setup, and I really appreciate they'll show the setup and then they'll shoot someone's reaction to it. So you'll hear it. And I almost wish or would have liked to have seen more of that, because the human's imagination, it's almost like that's why it's sort of like porn like, because they're showing it instead of letting. I might have even been more squeamish if I just heard her screaming and saw one of the guys like making a face or doing it, might have had a different response to it. But that's just my choice as a viewer, is I like to sort of like not see as much, which is why I think it was ahead of its time in that.
No, I was going to say, it really is like I mean, it is overkill, but it's like almost if it had been shorter, it would have been a completely different movie, like the rape scenes. And it had, I think the idea was to fill the viewers with enough disgust and rage that the rest of the film would be like that. It would be that much more satisfying to see her get her revenge.
Yeah, maybe it did for people watching it in the 1970s. It didn't for me as a woman watching it in
I get it.
2023. I even went and watched the 2010 remake.
Oh, really?
Which I actually auditioned for.
Yeah.
But I think that I had this agent at the time where I would get this was a period of my acting career where I would get a call back on every audition that I showed up to. Didn't book it all, but every time I submitted a tape, and I know Seth knows this agent, they would say, they would have a problem with my tape and they wouldn't submit it. And I would get so mad because I was like, you trust me in the room, but then you don't trust my tape. So anyway,
I used to
that's a side note.
I used to coach for this agent, and they would
and I know you're talking about.
They would call me and yell at me.
Yeah, they were horrible. But anyway, I sort of had a moment, you guys, where I watched just a little bit of that 2010 film, and I went, thank God I never booked this film. It's probably a blessing, and I dodged a bullet that they never submitted this. I didn't watch the whole film, but so I don't know how they went into a little bit more of the character's psyche, I think. But sorry, you guys lost me. I went a little blurry.
It's okay.
But yeah, I'll have to come back.
There you go. Just a quick side note. We've been getting some comments from our longtime viewer, Queen Boudica Radiant.
Queen Boudica!
Oh!
We love her.
She says she loves this film. She saw it. And she considers it a heavy psychological thriller rather than horror.
Yes, I agree.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it was not.
She says she found it very. She just commented. She found it very female empowering.
Okay.
I
could
feel
see
like
that.
that it was the message of the film, actually. I did not realize there was a remake.
Yeah, there's actually 2. There's a 2010 remake, like a
And then
complete remake of it. Yep.
yeah.
And then there's a second film that Camille Keaton actually is in. I haven't
Like a
seen it, but
sequel.
it's the sequel to the remake. It's called like Deja Vu or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happens in
But
it, but
I think there were
yeah.
more than those, because it seems like when you, and this is something that also baffled me, at least in terms of his Wikipedia filmography, Meir Zarchi, it seems like all the films he's done have been related to this film. Like they've all been, he's done like multiple versions or sequels to this film.
How
Let
are
me
the
see.
remakes compared? Queen Boudica. I didn't watch the whole film. It seemed like they were sticking pretty. It's pretty for at least the first 25 minutes that I watched before pre-rape and pre any rape scenes. They get into it. They change it a little bit. Like I mean, you can watch it, but it seems like it follows it along. But they shoot it definitely more in a modern style. So they do more close-ups with the characters. There's more getting to know them. I think you see a little bit more of their intention. Where in the 1978 version, it's kind of a little bit, I'll say, caricaturish with the men, where I think they're getting in the remake, it seems like they're getting a little bit more into like what sort of ticks them, because there's a scene where the men are talking and they're like, she would never date you, like what do you think? So they're kind of like egging them on, so there's a little bit more of, they give them like a motive, I'll say, in the remake compared to the first one. In the first one, they kind of just like show up and it seems like they want their friend who's handicapped to like finally have sex. But that's really the only like motive that they give. And then later he talks about how his wife is boring, who was actually the script supervisor.
Right. Yes.
Last minute.
So let me. I've just pulled
the
up
original one gets sick. So yeah.
I just pulled up the director's filmography according to Wikipedia. So his first film credit is "I Spit on Your Grave," 1978. Then he made a film in 1985 called "Don't Mess with My Sister," which I can't find much information on. But although he did make passing mention of it in the documentary. Then he was the executive producer for "I Spit on Your Grave" 2010, the remake. Then he was executive producer on "I Spit on Your Grave 2" 2013. And he was also the executive producer of "I Spit on Your Grave 3, Vengeance is Mine" 2015. And the writer, producer, and director of "I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu" 2019. So it seems like he couldn't
I didn't realize there was that many.
escape this film. I mean, it's like this. It seems like this film has become his life. I mean, it doesn't look like he did anything else.
Well, it's also like, I guess, I'm going to say it must have had some huge influence on his family, because he married her, and then it kind of becomes like a family business, right? Like, did he produce it?
But that marriage didn't last very long.
I know, but I'm just saying it must have had a big influence on him, and he.
Sure.
Should we talk about another? Could we just talk about a local agent? Should we talk about a local New York hero who's in this movie?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Let's talk about
New York legend. Okay, so during COVID, when we started this, there was something sad in New York City, that there weren't that many auditions, and there were these audition spaces that were stuff of legend all over New York City, because everyone's like, oh, I went into this little room over 440 Lafayette, and one of the places that everybody ended up at, for one thing or other, was Ron Shetler's studios. And Ron Shetler is in this movie. He's in this movie, and he's in Squirm, which is a horror movie where people get eaten up by worms.
The name that he's credited with is Eran Tabor.
Eran Tabor, yeah, it's a very
Israeli sounding.
There's a lot of Israelis in this movie,
and I don't know if Eran Tabor is actually his birth name and Ron Shetler is like a pseudonym, or if it's the other way around.
Yeah, I thought they said it was he created that name because he didn't want to use his original name to insult his men parents.
That makes sense.
I think
that's right.
I think
I remember that now. Yeah, I'd forgotten about.
Well, there were always a lot of rumors. Ron's a great guy. Dan Simon, who's going to do an episode, Frantic, did a documentary on Ron Shetler. Ron Shetler is the voice teacher, or was, at the neighborhood playhouse. And he did voice coaching and had numerous studios that have all sadly closed because it just couldn't keep up with the rents, with no Broadway independent film, TV auditions. And Ron, was someone who you would see in the office. And if you wanted to, you could intern for Ron, and you would get free studio space or voice lessons from Ron. And Ron is the main bad guy, the main heavy in this movie, who they do say something interesting. And I think it's an interesting character study, is they say the other guys probably wouldn't be able to do what they do in this movie if it wasn't that Ron's character is so dominated to them.
Right.
And it was between Ron and somebody else, and the wife said, go with Ron because he's better looking. And Ron had done Playboy a few years before, Playgirl.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I guess Playgirl he had done a few years before, and he was very comfortable being naked. And of course, that was the time when a lot of Broadway musicals like Hair paid you extra money to get naked. So, so Ron is all through this. And the rumor, and I don't know if it's true, and he doesn't talk about it in the film, but the rumor was that Ron went very method on this role. He does say he used a backstory about Vietnam to get into the part and why he does what he does. But the rumor around town was always that Ron scared himself in the rape sequence and never wanted to go any further in that. I don't know if that's true.
Into acting for film,
into the acting,
he doesn't have really any credits after this as an actor, does he?
So maybe it's true.
Yeah.
But he and the other guys seemed very concerned about her well-being through all those scenes. And, I'm sure this was not a union film in any regard. I remember doing student films at NYU on film. I still have one on film, and saying to people, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let them ride bicycles past my fingers like they're bullying me. I'm just not going to do that. It's not safe. And so when they talk about her, driving the boat close and almost hitting him and different, I was like, this is, the freezing water. As a director, I'd be like, no, you have to get in the freezing water. Like, it doesn't matter. But the other stuff, I'm like, yeah, you're probably lucky nobody got anything more than a few bruises on their wrists. And dude, running through the woods barefoot. Running through the woods barefoot sucks. Like, it's not like running on your lawn.
Yeah.
It's like running through the woods barefoot just sucks in general. Having done it, they're very, if you watch the Making of Blair Witch Project and listen to on the DVD the director's commentary, they were very serious about making sure that if somebody ran off frame, there was a rope ladder that they would hit and not get lost. And they were very safe, but they're way after this. Like, all of the safety precautions taken on Blair Witch Project are the result of numerous movies like this. And so that's Ron Shetler's a great guy. And I'm sure he's not one of our 275 viewers who watch the show.
Well, we got six viewers in here right now. And if any of you guys want to join the chat, click the link in the description and we can talk about this. But Queen Boudica just asked us another question, Judy.
Yeah. So I'm not positive, but it looks like there was the original 1978 film, and then there was a complete remake of the original film, which looks like the same storyline. I haven't seen the whole film, but I saw the beginning of it. And the 2010 version of I Spit on Your Grave looks like a complete remake. Yeah. Then there are sequels to that remake. So it looks like the 2015 I Spit on Your Grave, Vengeance is Mine is a separate cast. It doesn't have Camille or the woman who did the remake. But then the I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu does have the woman who was in the 2010 film. And it also has Camille Keaton, I believe, in that one as well.
Sometimes that happens because, like, Night of the Living Dead, when it got its distributor, they distributed it under another title. They don't own the Living Dead title in the original one. So they made the sequels to make money because no one on the original crew and cast and producers made any money. And it ran on TV for years for free on like Channel 9s and 11s and local cable. So maybe it was that. Maybe he had to bring it back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. The Deja Vu, it has Camille Keaton back.
Okay.
From 1978. It says cinema's top lethal lady, Vengeance, returns in the most anticipated sequel of all time. That would be interesting. I guess she's the lead in it. I don't know.
Now, somebody that we both admire and sometimes go, what are you thinking? Hated on this film. It was one of his, Roger Ebert. And Team Siskel too.
They said it was the worst film ever made.
Worst film ever made, and they actually met people at the movie theater and convinced them to go to other movies, which is crazy. Right?
I could see how this movie, and Queen Boudica mentioned it, how it's a deep psychological thriller more than a horror.
Yeah.
When you have something that covers this, you have to remember everybody's life experience is based on what they've experienced or what people they know have experienced. So, and that can come out in all sorts of ways. So I could see how a film like this could make people really angry. It could make them behave sort of weird because you just don't know what the response is going to be. It's really fascinating. I would love somebody to do like some sort of study on it. But I could see if someone hates this film with so much that they put energy into like getting other people to go see something else, I would be really curious to go like, what's going on with you?
This is a time when people hung out in movie theaters. Like there were movie theaters, and then there was the late show. That before cable, and it's before videotapes and DVDs. So presumably, people were going to this, and back then, you've heard it like with comedians from the day, like people used to go to movies that were not made for them and just mock the screen. So you can imagine going to see this in like New York City in Times Square,
right?
And on a rainy day, with your gang, and just having a field day talking to the screen and being insensitive.
This reminds me of something that I wanted to ask you guys about. Have any of you seen Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom?
No.
Are you familiar with this film?
I am.
You know what it's based off of, right?
No, I don't.
So let's enlighten Judy. So the 120 Days of Sodom is a book by the Marquis de Sade. You know who that is, right, Judy?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a very graphic, disgusting, vile, sexually violent story. I do not know what the film is like because I've never seen it, but it might be interesting as a counterpoint to this one, because I think it does have criminal rape, sexual weird stuff in it. I'm not sure, but I've heard that that's another one of these movies that's been banned in many countries and censored. And let's see, Salo has earned a reputation among some film scholars for being the sickest film of all time, with some citing it as an early progenitor of the extreme cinema subgenre, alongside the American film The Last House on the Left from 1972.
Yeah, well, this fits into the same genre as like Last House on the Left, which is those movies that we were like, maybe they did kill. And also, what's the one where the hills have eyes?
There's also Cannibal Holocaust that I know was like really, where they did like they killed like a turtle and a pig or something. For real. I don't think any humans were killed, but it was.
So this is interesting. Okay, so this is from a film scholar, Matthias Frey, on the film Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom. He says that the cross section between the film's thematic content and graphic visuals has resulted in it being considered both a horror film as well as an art film. Films like Salo, which are usually considered by critics as works by the artists, might be received in practice also by individuals who watch Saw or Hostel or any popular or cult horror film, which is interesting. And it was also, so this might be worthy of an investigation. If we can stomach it.
Yeah, those films are more in the torture porn subgenre, because horror is a very big umbrella.
Yeah. What's the movie with Monica Bellucci where you have to watch her get raped for like 25 minutes straight? Irreversible.
I don't remember the name of it. I think it's one word. I think that might be it.
That one I thought about, and also
there's
Straw
also
Dogs.
the Jodie Foster rape scene, which is not a horror film.
The accused.
Yeah.
But then there's also Straw Dogs with Dustin Hoffman and Sam Peckinpah. This is going on a lot in the 70s, like this sort of like gangs of guys doing this to women. But Straw Dogs is considered both an art film and not a horror film, but it's a psychological horror film.
Yeah. I mean, there's a similar, Seth, I know you know this movie, Teeth. I forget what year it was made at the indie film, but that's kind of a horror comedy vengeance film about a woman with teeth in her vagina. So definitely not nearly as graphic or squeamish, at least for me as a woman. Maybe as a man, they would feel differently. But it's kind of no, I don't think we saw it. But did you know the character, the woman in it?
I know that
I feel like you had some sort of connection. We didn't see it together, but I remember talking about it.
I know that woman was in a AT&T commercial, a cell phone commercial was her big break. And it had the Mary Tyler Moore song, Who Can Turn the World On with a Smile. And she's doing all this Mary Tyler Moore stuff. And she was like this really like it girl. And then she did Teeth. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was like, who can turn the world on with a smile? And she's got teeth in her vagina. Anyway.
Yeah.
The cutting off his penis was well done, I thought, of Ron Sugar's character.
Yeah, that was definitely, I appreciated the length of that scene. It was squeamish, but it was fairly quick. It kind of caught me.
And
it was appropriate. It kind of caught me off guard. It wasn't too and that's another example where they don't show specifically it happened, but they show enough that you know exactly what happened. And it's more about the reaction and then her just like, you know. So I really liked how that scene was done. Maybe that's, you know, I don't know. But I just feel like that was the appropriate amount. And that could just be a technical thing that they didn't have enough money to like really show that, or maybe they didn't want to. I don't know.
In the documentary, they talk about it. They use a milk jug effect. The special effects guy was very about the horror of the mind being a bigger deal than anything they could show. Like he seemed to be fighting for that a lot. He's the guy also who got the spare ribs for the axe to go into. And that was getting old and rank. And they're like, we got to hurry this up before they start smelling. Which reminded me of a movie, an off-Broadway show I did where they thought it'd be a good idea for like Frankenstein's intestines and stuff. It was called Heart of a Dog by Bulgakov. And so they went to a butcher shop and they got sausages. And I said, well, you're going to put them in formaldehyde or alcohol, right? And they're like, no, just water. And I'm like, no, don't do it. By day 4, which was a week from day 3, because we would only do 3 days, and then they would. The smell on stage of these sausages that were putrefying in water was just, it was great. It was just, These are the things, kids. Have actors.
Yeah, I mean, I shot a movie where I bit off a penis, and it was a piece of sausage and like a mint blood that they would pour into my mouth before shooting, and I would spit it out.
Wow,
these are my glory days.
That's amazing.
In Conan the Barbarian, they used a real dead vulture.
Oh no!
So for Arnold to like kill the vulture and spit it out, but it's a vulture, it's a scavenger, and I guess they killed it in the desert somewhere where they shot, and they didn't, get it from like a lab or something like that. So they would just give him like moonshine or some kind of like really 100 proof alcohol to like gargle with and spit out between takes, because otherwise, his teeth might go gangrene, or like he might get some horrible disease that would take him out of the entire thing. So yeah, these are the things, man. These are the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Queen Boudica's asking you a question.
Yeah, it's called The Wreck, and it's not a great film, to be honest. I don't even know where you can see it. It was on Netflix for
me and my friend Brian Radke, my old business partner, coached the shit out of you on The Wreck, though. We were on the phone 24/7 with you, I remember.
Were we? I don't remember.
Yeah, because you're like, I can't cry.
Can you find it? Can you find The Wreck on like Fandor or something like that?
I have a PAL version of it. They actually never made an American DVD of it. It's with myself and Aaron Lohr, who's now married to Idina Menzel.
Oh, wow.
He played my husband, and Jonathan Cherry played his brother. He was in Final Destination 2, I believe, and he's been in a few, like Goons or something now. I'm not sure what else he's up to. It was a great experience. It's just, it was made by a young director who was very enthusiastic, but they kind of rushed the screenplay. It was one of those films where I really learned when they go, "We'll just fix it in post." And it's like, if you hear that, it's like, no, don't fix it in post. Great experience, though. It's called The Wreck. With myself, Aaron Lauren, Jonathan Cherry. So I'm not sure where you could find it.
What is this Jessica movie that Queen?
I don't know.
Queen just mentioned Jessica something.
Yeah. She said it was a movie from like the 70s.
Well, she should come on the show. We should have her come on the show and do one with us, because Judy's not here all the time, and she's our biggest fan. She's our biggest fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think she might be eating dinner right now, she said. So if she wants to jump on, yeah, she says she always likes films that people say are horrible. Yeah, so do we. Bad. And yeah, anytime you want to jump on Queen Boudica, you just hit that link in the description, and then I'll pull you into the StreamYard, and you'll just kind of show up in the, on the video, like Scared Jessica or something like that. She's gonna look it up. Okay, cool.
Yeah, let us know.
There's a film called Jessica from 1962, but it's a comedy drama.
Yeah,
but I think she said it was. I don't know. She just said it was a weird one.
Yeah.
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 But it sounds like she has a very good knowledge of film. So.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a story, because my mom sometimes tries to watch these movies. We weren't even going to attempt to make her watch this one. But we watched Carrie. And my mother, who I guess doesn't have a bad bone in her body, was like, you never wanted to kill a kid in high school for like something that they did to you or somebody else? You never thought? She's like, no, not at all. And I was like, I thought about it all the time. Like, I want to hang this one. I want to draw and quarter this one. And like this one to be eaten alive on a termite mound. But, this movie is one of those movies that you can think about, like, oh, if there was somebody I really wanted to, like, torture and kill in a cruel and unusual way, which is illegal under the Constitution, cruel and unusual punishment, what would I do? And, so I think that's a good thing.
I didn't have that experience in high school. I cried a lot, I wrote my journal a lot, turned to substances. No, I more wanted to kill myself than other people.
Really?
I didn't want to kill other people. Well, killing other people is a sign of you're progressing. You're getting more healthy when it goes from yourself to it goes to others. So I hit that more in my like early to mid 20s.
No, I had moments.
Interesting.
I had moments of wanting to kill other people in junior high, and once I got deeply into high school and discovered, love and rejection, I thought it was time for me to explore suicide as an attention getter. But no, I mean, you're right. Suicidal feelings are often said to be homicidal feelings turned inward.
Yeah. No, I'll never forget. I was at a. People might go, whoa.
I guess it depends.
I was a cocktail waitress at a place that a lot of theater people would go to in Manhattan, and oh man, some of these people really drove me crazy. And I remember one night I was just like, I was done. I used to say people would like chasse into the bar, and like I was just like, oh my God. And I just remember one night people were making me so mad, and I just had this moment where I was like looking at this group of guys who are annoying the crap out of me, and I was like, I just want to like go up to them and shoot them or something. And I like saw it in my head, and I went, oh no, I don't want to do that. Like it was like I was like, oh, what would that be like? And then I like saw it happen in my mind, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to kill them. I just really, really don't like them. you know, but it was like I had to have that like moment of like, oh, okay, I just really maybe I should find another job.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many it's so funny, like people must be holding back so much when they get famous and do talk shows, because we never made it, and we have so many stories about being mistreated by like the Broadway crowd and the independent theater. I mean, some of them are wonderful. I have some wonderful stories about them.
Oh yeah. Oh, there was lovely people
lots of them and lots more. But then, I hear stuff about some people and I go, yep, knew that was coming if there's a justice in this world.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I have a theory. I do think, and this was my experience of being on set, and Seth, maybe you could relate, or maybe you too, Abram.
Yeah.
I found that the people who were like A-listers or maybe even B-lister actors that everybody knew were some of the most sweet, wonderful, pleasant people to work with. They were so polite. They were so caring about the crew. They were really
Right.
just an example of like what you want to be. And then when you saw the people who were more of like the C-list or the D-list, or especially the new actors, they were just kind of obnoxious. And you could see that they would like kiss the ass of like the director and the producer and then kind of mistreat like the PA or the intern. And then I would see the crew swiftly wanting to get these people off the set, and it just made me think, well, this person's never going to become an A-lister, because if the crew hates you, you're never going to make it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You know, if the director needs the crew, the producer and the writer, they need the crew,
Well,
and if the crew hates that actor, they're just no one wants
it's
to work
just
with you.
no, it's true. And I remember, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is watching what was it on Masterclass? It was Samuel L. Jackson was talking
Right.
about how you got to treat everybody nice, like you got to treat
Mm-hmm.
people well. And I think he's got a big reputation for being like really, really kind to everybody that he works with. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
why would you not do that? They're there to make your life easier and to like make things happen. Like, why wouldn't you want them to be really happy to work with you? Because it's going to make your job easier. Like, it's just common sense. But, people have real egos and chips on their shoulders, and everybody's resentment and dysfunctions come out, I think, in sometimes in a worse way when they get a platform, when they have a bully pulpit of sorts. They like to bully people.
Yeah.
But Queen Boudica just shared with us the name of the film. It's called "Let's Scare Jessica to Death" from 1971.
Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Sounds
and
fun.
It was directed by John Hancock in his directorial debut. That's the same John Hancock that did "Bang the Drum Slowly," which is
okay.
Very
big deal movie.
Yeah, big deal film.
It's the movie that at one point was considered one of the best baseball movies, right?
Yeah.
And a guy I knew, Terry Schreiber's father, was a talent scout for a minor league team, I think. And Terry said, "This is the best movie ever about baseball, Dad." And his father saw it and he goes, "Yeah, I guess it's a great movie, but I just know too much about baseball, and De Niro's too short to be a catcher." And that was one of those moments where I realized you can never make everybody happy. You can never make the ex.
Bringing it back to this, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. It's a good candidate for our show. The budget was $250,000, and it did, I guess, 40-something thousand in its opening week. Let's see. It's analysis. Some literature and film scholars have drawn comparisons between Let's Scare Jessica to Death and Irish novelist Sheridan Le Fanu's novel Carmilla, which tells the story of a vampiress.
Female vampire, yeah.
Wow, okay. So, released from a mental institution to the care of her husband, who has given up his job as string bassist for New York Philharmonic and purchased a rundown farmhouse outside of the city. When Jessica, Duncan, and their hippie friend Woody arrive, they are surprised to find a mysterious drifter, Emily, already living there. When Emily offers to move in, Jessica invites her to dine with them and stay the night. What could possibly go wrong?
Well,
so Queen Boudica says it's amazing and weird as fuck film. So
does Queen Boudica want to come on one week with us, and we'll have like our first international?
I think she's open to it. Possibly, she's still eating dinner, so she might not come on today, but in the future,
okay.
If we decide to do this film, we will put it up well in advance as a premiere, so you'll know when it's
like us.
So she'll know when it's So it'll be clear when it's coming on, and the link will already be there, ready to go. So we'll make sure that that's available. If you if you're subscribed to our channel, you'll be able to get notifications about that. But that looks like a really interesting candidate for our show.
Definitely.
That film is truly the most unique thing I've ever seen. Truly, you will seriously love it. It is so trippy. Hey, I'm not going to argue with that.
We're there.
So we're about at the 50-minute point. I think we're pretty much ready to wrap. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Queen Boudica, definitely come on with us. We'll do that maybe within the next month.
Yeah.
So what we have lined up for next week is Frantic with starring Harrison Ford, and it's a Roman Polanski film. It's one of his lesser known films, but one of his best, I think. Very interesting thriller.
You think it's his best? Really?
No, I'm saying it's one of his best, just in terms of actual craft.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying it's not Chinatown, it's not Rosemary's Baby, but it's a film that nobody knows about, and there's literally nothing wrong with it. It's just
a further exploration of the spooky European genre.
Yeah. It's a very spooky sort of crime thriller type of film. Like I like films where it's like the normal regular square guy ends up in a situation that he didn't bargain for and through no fault of his own. And, you know, in a sense, it's sort of like Chinatown in the sense that it's like some guy, he's just trying to do his job and or do whatever he's doing. And he ends up with this crazy situation in his lap.
Is Frantic the first Where's My Wife? Where's My Kid? Where's the Bathroom? Harrison Ford movie?
Wait, what was the other one that he was in?
Where's My Patriot Games is Where's My Daughter.
Okay.
There's another
because Liam Neeson's pretty known for those kinds of films.
There's a long period where Harrison Ford waits when he does The Fugitive. He wants to find the guy.
He's the one-armed man.
It's this whole where's my ship? Where's my wife? Where's my kid? Where's my daughter? Where's my And now, of course, this new Indiana Jones where he's so old he doesn't know how to find his way to the bathroom. I'm kidding. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, is there a bathroom around here?
All right.
Indeed. Maybe it's him just being brought to like famous museums that he's like, and he doesn't remember anything. Like they take him to the pyramids. They hope that'll break the amnesia, but he doesn't have amnesia. He's just old and senile. That would be like the whole movie. So all these people just trying to remind Indiana Jones of what he meant to them. But Spielberg just doesn't have the guts to make that movie.
Don't even get me started on Spielberg. We're not allowed to say that guy's name on this show.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. Anyway, I haven't had dinner tonight, so
you might like his comedy 1941.
What is 1941 about?
It's John Belushi. And instead of the way 1941 America enters the war, the way it happened historically, it's Toshiro Mifune and Christopher Lee come over as the Nazi and the samurai, respectively, and they attack I can't remember if it's New York or San Francisco, but it's like it's got Slim Pickens in it, and he finds Christopher Lee. It's like, a Nazi! Oh, you Hun bastard! We kicked your ass in the Great War, and we'll kick it.
I'll have a look at it.
Yeah,
but at any rate, so next week we're going to be doing Frantic. We'll see you guys then. I got to make myself some dinner. It's
make some dinner.
Late, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in, and Queen Boudica, thank you for chatting with us, and we will see you next time.
Yep.
All right. And